I'm John Macy. I'm the CEO of Competitive Edge Technology. It's a software consulting company in human resources, but of course we've got a technology aspect to our business as well, and that's what we're doing now. We're integrating the technology into the business practice. All the new technology that's emerging, such as blockchain, artificial intelligence, should all be part of the human resource practice. And that's the journey that we started to make sure that this integration all came together, and we could take a product that we'd been working on for many years, integrate that with a blockchain component and deliver that as a commercial product. Well, I think one of the major things that's really been something that we can be proud of in this journey is that we've been able to participate with the HR community and the technology people. We're working with the Australian government on the Australian National Blockchain Roadmap. We were part of the credentialing committee that put that all together. At the same time, we had to make sure that it was a global product. So we're part of the International Standards Organisation credentialing workshops. So we're working with the ISO to make sure we've got a standardised product that can be rolled out globally. And now we've been working with some very good companies like IBM, Amazon Web Services, to make sure that we had the right technology to scale up, to make sure that what we were developing would definitely be global, and we could then not concentrate solely on Australia, but we could then roll this out to the broader community. I think the problem we had and the challenge that we were faced when we started was we knew we had good technology, we had a lot of moving parts, but we didn't know how they all fitted together. So when we got together with our whiteboarding to build a framework, a Engenesis framework around everything that we were trying to achieve, it became much clearer. And then what we needed to do was go from a concept to a real business implementation of all of the technology that we knew was good. We knew we were on the right track. We had to put all of that together. And I think one of the challenges is getting the message across, because we knew very well what we wanted to talk about, but would people understand it? And because our target audience were an HR community who weren't technology savvy, we had to be able to simplify a message so they would understand and relate the technology to their business practice. So all of that sort of came together, but then we needed to commercialise that so that we could obviously determine whether there was a return on investment, whether we were going to make money, whether we were going to be able to bring shareholders along with us on the journey. So as we all worked through the workshops and started to put the bits and pieces into this Engenesis framework, it became much clearer to us. And then we could delete the things we didn't think were necessary, and we could refine the message so that it was going to be understood by our target audience. We knew what we wanted, but no one else did at that stage. So that became clearer as we were working with Engenesis to be able to define what it was we were trying to build, how it fitted into the community, and we had to face the challenges that there was already some negative publicity in the marketplace about blockchain. So we had to get a message across that overcame that and differentiate between a Bitcoin and an enterprise blockchain, and that was a major problem. So helping us understand was in how we got that message across was a very important step. I think the thing that comes to mind about the early stages when we start to work with Engenesis was that there was going to be an important message that firstly we had to get people to unlearn a lot about the technology. So we knew what we wanted, but no one else did. And I think some of the things that we whiteboarded, things that we talked about in terms of what is it really that's the pain points now for the business, and then we were able to identify them. So that allowed us then to build a framework, build a pathway, so we could work out how we actually got to that point. Yeah, I think it never flows exactly, and part of the process that we went through was working out what was going to work and what wasn't working. So we had to take into account there's going to be losses in this, so we've spent a lot of time in a certain direction. We had to throw that out because it wasn't going to work. And that's how we sort of developed the framework components that were really going to go forward with us, rather than try and drag all the baggage along with us and just slow us down. So, that's what we really needed to clarify through our workshops, through our discussions, and getting a person to look at this from outside. From within, we knew what it was. The developers, the people involved in this were so close to the technology, they really didn't understand how it all fitted together. Well, I think when we started to explain the concept to people that we wanted to bring in as investors, we wanted to bring people in to put up the seed money. We had that pre-seeding stuff done, but we really needed to explain the message to people so that they had an aha moment, understood what it was about, and then were prepared to invest with us on the journey. So as we sort of were able to structure this in a framework, we could then communicate with the investor that we brought along, who suddenly understood it, and that helped us through our workshops explain to him how all of this fitted together and get him enthusiastic as we were to be able to go to the next stage of the journey and build out the business model. The way we saw it, if we couldn't explain it to our potential investor in an easy to understand way, we weren't going to be able to go forward. We'd very quickly run out of funds. So we found that it was important to be able to get the message across, especially to people who wanted to invest with us, but they wanted to know exactly how it all fitted together. Technology meant nothing to them. The business practice was foreign to a lot of people, so how we melded it together was going to be something we needed to explain. What was important to us to put in our message was that what we were developing wasn't a supply chain, it wasn't a financial cryptocurrency or something like that. And by talking through our workshops with the Engenesis guys, that helped us say, well, we're building something for the enterprise. So it was the distinction that we had to make to our potential investors, and at the same time refine our message, because it's the same message that's got to go to the marketplace. So it was important for us to understand and then to be able to communicate it. Looking back, we were very naive, because as we were putting the technology and the product together, it was only through our workshops and questions from Engenesis like, who's going to pay for this? Is it going to be the company? Is it going to be the employee? And that helped us then work out exactly who it is that's going to pay. Problem was everyone thought it was free because Facebook is free, so that was the problem. Then we got to work out, well, where's the revenue going to come from and in what area? And is the technology that is still brand new going to overtake our revenue? I mean, obviously we're not going to go to market with something to lose money. We want to work out what are our operational costs, our storage costs, our cost of transactions. All of those things weren't clear because it was a brand new model. So we needed to bounce that off someone else who had the experience, who could understand what it was we were going to be up against when we went to the marketplace. And that's where we found the value in all the workshops, talking through this. And then we were able to identify who our real customer was, who would be in a position to benefit from this and be prepared to pay. Then we could work backwards and say, well, we can manage the costs. We can then work out who it is that's paying, how much they're prepared to pay, and so forth. Okay. Well, we got to a point where we had to work out who was going to pay for this, who was going to be the target audience, and what sort of revenue are we talking about? Employees, are we talking about companies? And we were driven by some of the other market experiences where people aren't used to paying for Facebook, so it's free. So we had to eliminate the employee. So then, from a company perspective, how much were they prepared to pay? There was process improvement, but was it going to equate to how much it was going to cost them? So all of the cost modelling and that became clearer during our workshops as we talked through the various components of cost and the revenue items that we could manipulate. What we found as we went through was we were comfortable with a message that we'd defined while we were going through our workshops. Now, we knew there was going to be a problem locally in Australia, people getting it, understanding what it was that we did. We knew that in Singapore, the UK and America, they were ahead of us. And so as we started to bring along people for our governance group, we had identified the institutions in Australia, but they didn't get it. So we eventually, out of frustration, went to the people in America. They got it straight away. So we didn't modify the message. We defined our message during the workshops, we were comfortable with it, and we knew that sooner or later we're going to catch up with it in Australia, but we were going to be able to fast track this in America. And that's now becoming our focus so that we can work with the people in America, but pilot the program in Australia. Yeah, no, what's more encouraging is that the people that are the International Association for Human Resource Information Management have got their 40-year anniversary this year. They're looking to go global, and they're doing a big release and presentation in Las Vegas in June. So we're still negotiating, but they look like heading up the governance group. So in other words, they'll oversee the countries as they put together the rules for, membership of the. So it's good stuff, but we've been there before, very close before, but this time I think targeting America has been the right move. Yeah, I think once you work with the Engenesis team and you're comfortable with what you put together in your Genesis framework, and you're not going to change that. If you continually change, you'll lose direction. When you've got that and you're comfortable with it, then it's market readiness. And I think that's what we discovered. We had to look externally, but it's no point in trying to modify what we'd already developed simply to retrofit to a market that wasn't ready. Our options were, we wait for the market in Australia to catch up, or we go overseas. And the beautiful thing was, what we developed was transportable. We could take it to any country in the world, and the same thing applies. So, I think what we discovered on the journey through our workshops was that blockchain, while it had local relevance, it was a global solution. So it wasn't going to survive just in Australia, and we had to have a model that was able to be used globally. So we could then look at, for example, employee data ownership. That's a global solution. It's not locally. If we look at credentialing, people can have university qualifications anywhere in the world, but they move and work anywhere in the world. So what we needed to do was bring along on the journey other countries at the same time when we had our model defined. So working through the Engenesis workshops, getting our framework together, we could be confident that what we had was globally applicable. And that's where we see the future in any case.